Chapter 1057. When he saw this scene, Qin Mo's Adam's apple moved. Qin Mo's Adam's apple moved. Something tugged at his heart, reminding him of the emptiness he couldn't grasp when he had reached out his hand. His head felt as though it was about to explode. There was a voice that told him. The most important person to him was no longer around. In the depths of his memory. Momo, do you want to drink water? I don't know how to cook, but I know how to pour water. Tell me, how much money do you want before you admit that you're mine? I'm very rich and I can give you everything. Momo, do you want to drink water? Momo's eyes lit up. Momo, do you want to drink water? Idiot. Shut up. He could ignore everyone, but he couldn't ignore the person who always liked to play with the little keyboard in front of him. His ears turned red, but he was afraid that his illness would be transmitted to her. However, the feeling of being hugged was too good. He didn't want to let this person go. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the man. As long as she was by his side, it would be fine. As long as the person who had turned his world upside down was still by his side. But for some reason, that person disappeared and never came back. Qin Mo gritted his teeth. He felt as though he was hallucinating. After shaking off some things, his deep and dark eyes regained their clarity. It was probably too painful. He could only use this method to divert his attention. His mouth was filled with blood. He focused his gaze. Then he walked towards Bo Jiu. He bent down and placed one knee on the floor. Then he used strength and carried the youngster up. This was the scene magician and the others saw when they rushed over. This group of people understood Qin Mo the best. The boss they knew had never been so gentle. No, it wasn't just gentle. It was the kind of person who was afraid of breaking the person in his arms. He turned his head carefully and planted a light kiss on her head. He had never knelt and was filled with pride. At this moment, he was in the most defenseless position. The people on the boat saw the kiss too. No one spoke. A myriad of emotions surged in everyone's heart. Qin Mo carried Bo Jiu and stood up. He turned around and bowed slightly. Thank you. The word thank you. What was he thanking them for? Everyone present understood. Thank you for pulling her up. Thank you for the first aid. Thank you for putting on the mask for her. The girl standing next to her covered her mouth and said with a sob, "We should thank her." This sentence. The youth could not hear it. However, her fingers seemed to have sensed something. They moved slightly and grabbed onto the corner of Qin Mo's shirt tightly. Qin Mo lowered his lids and looked at his bleeding right hand. His voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry I'm late. Be good. I'll take you home now." When the rest of them heard this, they felt extremely uncomfortable. Because everyone knew. In order to get here as soon as possible, the young master's hand was almost crippled. Fortunately, this youngster was fortunate. Flames filled the air. The rescue continued. More than 20 people were brought ashore. The little boy watched as Qin Mo hugged the person and was about to leave. He ran over and called out to Qin Mo, "Big brother, this is for little brother. When he wakes up and cries out in pain, you can give him this." Chapter 1058. When Qin Mo looked at the pair of eyes, it was as if some scenes had flashed through his mind. But the speed of the images was too fast. It was so fast that Qin Mo couldn't catch it. But the scene in front of him was so familiar. It was so familiar that he felt that he had seen the same person holding a lollipop high above her head to pass it to him. "Momo, eating sweets can make people feel better. I heard from Grandpa and that you used to like staying in China. Now that you're here, you're not used to it. You even miss your mother. I miss my mother too. I'll sit beside you and think with you." She said that she wanted to think with him. In the end, the small figure glanced at the candy in her hand and then at him. "Momo. Speak. We'll think while eating the candy. It's sweet." "Okay. I'll help you open the wrapper and feed it to you." "No need." "Why?" "Those movies on TV are all about domineering CEOs feeding their secretaries. Why don't you try looking at those messy things again? Eat your candy. And are you an idiot? Domineering CEO, you? What idiot? I'm smart. Don't be unconvinced. Go ask this street and see who can beat me." "Come here." "Do what?" "Teach you how to be a lady. Idiot." "I'm not an idiot." I'm someone who wants to be a domineering CEO. Just you wait, humph. The image was too blurry. It was so blurry that Qin Mo could only catch bits and pieces of it. But he felt like he was searching for flowers in the fog, as if there was something between them. Brother, big brother. The little boy tilted his head. When he saw that Qin Mo didn't speak, he called out again, Big brother, are you asleep? Qin Mo suddenly came back to his senses. He waited for the piercing pain to pass before he reached out to take the candy from the little boy's hand. Thank you. I'll tell her what you said. The little boy smiled brightly. You're welcome. Who are we? We're both so handsome. It's only right. After he finished speaking, he skipped away and returned to his mother's side. When Qin Mo saw this, he expressed his gratitude once again. The mother caressed the little boy's head. Her gaze was gentle. After the explosion, the media and paramedics would definitely come to the scene. At this moment, the black mask on the young man's face played a crucial role. Other than the people on the ship, no one knew Bo Jio's true appearance. No one knew that the youngster who had saved so many lives was actually a girl. No matter where it was, this matter caused quite a stir. When Director Huang rushed over, all he saw was Qin Mo's back. Magician looked at him, shaking his head, implying that Fan Jia hadn't caught him. Even Director Huang was unwilling to give up. However, there was one good thing. Fan Jia's true identity had been exposed. All of her information will be recorded, and an international manhunt will be launched. The most important thing was that this time, they had found the traitor hidden in the Major Crimes Division. Based on those messages, no matter what the other party's identity was, they would definitely receive the punishment he deserved this time. However, now was not the time to talk about this. In the Land Rover, Qin Mo drove at the maximum speed. Before the car arrived, all the medical equipment and personnel of the Qin family were ready. Chapter 1059. The lights in the Qin family's house hadn't dimmed since midnight. Qin Mo stood beside the bed. The others didn't dare to stop him, probably because they had never seen their young master in such a state. His left hand was tightly clenched as he suppressed his anger. The seawater aura around him hadn't dissipated. Even the white bandage on his hand was stained with blood. Qin Mo didn't seem to feel it. He was focused on wiping the sweat off the youngster who was having a nightmare. Bo Jio had a restless sleep. She had dreamt of too many things. The first time, her pet had left her. Her father had told her, Jio, you have to learn to bear with it because you are the young lord of the hacker world and are destined to be alone for the rest of your life. The second time, she had lived recklessly because she didn't have to bear the responsibilities. She had lost the person who was always on her shoulders, the person who liked to act coquettishly and protect her no matter what happened. The last time, she had dreamt that Hoshino had been caught. Her dreams were very messy, and she was powerless in them all. How did he suffer such a serious injury? Madame Zhang asked the doctor softly with a bowl of porridge in her hands, her heart aching for him. The doctor shook his head and walked out. Young Master probably didn't want anyone to know about young Master Zhou's injury, otherwise, he wouldn't have brought him home. Madame Zhang, you don't have to ask about the reason, just take care of him. Now that young Master Zhou is awake, he should eat something light, it's nothing serious. Young Master's hand, it's time to change the dressing. Young Master Zhou has been changing it for the past 2 days. Now that he isn't awake, young Master. Madame Zhang sighed. I'll see if I can persuade him at the right time. That's the only way. The private doctor walked towards Qin Mo. Young Master Zhou's internal organs aren't damaged. Other than a slight concussion, everything is normal. Young Master Zhou should wake up before dawn. Young Master should rest early. I understand. When Qin Mo said these 3 words, Emma's eyes lit up. The doctor wasn't sure how much Qin Mo had heard. After everything was done, he left the room with Madame Zhang, leaving the room to the 2 of them. Qin Mo, who had been standing by the side of the bed, sat down, his bandaged hand caressing the youngster's face until the phone in his pocket rang. Only then did he withdraw his hand and press the call button. Hello. If we want to convict that person, we still need some evidence. After a moment of silence, Director Huang continued, if it's just a text message, it can only prove that he leaked the meeting. We can't punish him severely. I'm sorry. Qin Mo's handsome face didn't change much after he heard that. Director Huang was about to say something when he saw Zhang Ruiqiang's silence. Qin Mo replied, "I'll call you back in 5 minutes." "Hello. Hello." Director Huang glanced at his darkened phone screen and the bustling scene outside. Now, he could only hope that Qin Mo had a solution. After hanging up the phone, Qin Mo dialed a number. "It's rare that you would contact me." It was Rao Rong. Even to this day, when his voice came through the phone, it was still the same as when he played as a team control sorcerer. It was soft like the rain but couldn't be ignored. Qin Mo lowered his lids, his voice unchanged. He had no intention of beating around the bush. "Was Wang Chuanlei the one who killed your father?" Rao Rong had never imagined that he would hear the name of the person he had to bite his fist every night to stop himself from killing with a knife. But it was that name. It was so hypocritical that he could even vomit during his meal. At that time, Rao Rong had thought of reporting it to the relevant authorities. There had been one time when he had almost succeeded. But some people had accused him of framing the other party. So what if he had been a god of esports back then? People who didn't know how to pretend to be wronged didn't seem to have a way out in this world. He had watched as the culprit escaped right in front of his eyes and told him in private, "Wake up, you can never do anything to me." Back then he had been so naive. He had thought that with evidence, he would be able to get justice for himself. In reality, he hadn't been afraid of power and hadn't been afraid of losing his life. What had caused him to lose everything was the inability of those people to differentiate right from wrong. The culprit would always hide behind, revealing a smile and pretending to be wronged at the right time. Rao Rong had missed an opportunity. The other party had risen higher and higher, using his father's credit to rise higher and higher. In the end, he couldn't even take revenge. Rao Rong was clear that the evidence in his hands was enough to kill Wang Chuanlei thousands of times. But he didn't believe it anymore. It wasn't that he didn't believe in the law, he just didn't believe in the human heart. "Give me the evidence in your hands." Qin Mo's voice rang again. "I will send him to jail." Rao Rong stood up, his fingers supporting his forehead as he chuckled. "Qin Mo, do you think everyone is good? That's not it. Some people don't have a sense of right and wrong. You might not be able to succeed, so how can I believe you?" "I studied psychology." Qin Mo held onto his phone, his emotions calm. "I know how selfish humans can be. To punish Wang Chuanlei, we still lack the most critical evidence. This time, it's up to you to decide if you want to let him end his life." Rao Rong paused. After a while he spoke again. "I remember there was a previous case, a legal case. It is still in court and the fans of the perpetrator are still saying that he isn't guilty." Qin Mo's gaze deepened. "Those who are my accomplices aren't fit to be called humans and their voices can be ignored." "What else are you trying to say?" Rao Rong broke into a sudden laugh. "I'll give you the evidence. I want to appear in court personally and see Wang Chuanlei go to jail." "All right." The two almighties who had once been on par with each other in the esports world were going to join hands. This time, it seemed as though they were going to let everyone know what was right and wrong. When Director Huang received Qin Mo's call, it was already 4 minutes later. "Tomorrow morning, Rao Rong will bring all the evidence he has gathered to the crime squad." Qin Mo's voice was faint. "You have to see it personally. Uncle Rao has many students and there are some in the crime squad that he used to lead. All of them are trying to avoid suspicion. If we want to win, we have to win with innocence. We owe someone an entire year of glory and apology." Director Huang's throat bobbed. "Understood. Also." Qin Mo's gaze shifted. "How is the hostage I saved reacting?" Director Huang suddenly remembered something. "Stop, she has been causing a ruckus, asking if we are using force. She wouldn't be in danger if we didn't chase after her, but the moment we took action, danger found her. She wants us to apologize and compensate her for her emotional distress." "Is that so?" "Compensate her?" Qin Mo chuckled and looked at the youngster lying on the bed. His eyes were so cold that they seemed to be covered in frost. "Since she doesn't have morals, I'll teach her a lesson. It's not wrong to help a major suspect escape. After all, the ignorant are innocent. But now that she knows everything, she's still acting like this. Let's go through the legal process. Even if she's underage, there will be a children's center for her." Director Huang's fingers twitched, but in the end, he decided to voice his concern. Her mother has been waiting outside and her family doesn't seem to be well off. If we go through the legal process, people might say you are using your power to oppress her. Then tell them that I'm very glad that I have the power to send these unrepentant people to prison." Qin Mo's smile didn't reach his eyes. Who told them that they can get away with their crimes just because they are weak? They admit to their crimes and accuse others when they don't admit it. They are inhumane. This has nothing to do with strength, wealth or age. If we don't stop her from committing a grave crime, her mother will be the one to suffer. Director Huang straightened. "I know what to do. I have been an official for too long and I have too many concerns. I will let her meet her mother first." After the call, Director Huang got someone to call the mother who had been waiting outside the entire day. The mother hadn't eaten for an entire day and her hair was a mess. The moment she entered, she held onto the girl's hand. "Are you all right?" The girl hated her mother for not washing her hair or putting on makeup. Right now it was even worse. But she still had to cry and complain about how wronged she was. The mother felt terrible and wanted to hug her child. "Someone told me just now. You have to bear the consequences of this." "Consequences?" The girl's expression immediately changed. "What consequences do I have to bear? What did I do wrong? Do I have to bear the consequences?" The mother looked at her child and was about to speak. "I know they want to use their power to oppress others." The girl was filled with hatred. "In the end you have no money. Don't you know how to dress up before going out? You are being looked down upon. Have you ever thought about me?" Director Huang stood behind the mother. Since the incident, the mother had used up all the methods she could think of. She had been sitting outside the entire time. Even those who were involved would feel touched. He hadn't expected the girl to say such words. Did she not see that her mother was tired and haggard? "I won't go to the children's detention center. These people keep saying that this person is guilty and that person is guilty. I will help whoever I want." The girl laughed coldly. "Aren't they bullying me because I am a weak person? If you want to hide and not retaliate, I dare." The mother shook her eyes. She couldn't say a word. At that moment, the figure's words appeared in front of her eyes once again. Chapter 1060. Because there are countless people like your daughter who are accomplices. The last sentence. The mother's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't educated. If it was in the past, she would have thought that it was because she was uneducated that she raised her daughter like this. But before this, she had seen the video. The mother of the perpetrator. That person had the same background as her. Many people said that she was doing this to get money. But in reality, it was all because of her mother. She understood that the corpse had yet to turn cold, and justice had yet to be served. The one who was hurt was her daughter, so how could she sleep? She didn't even dare to believe that her daughter would defend someone who took away the rights of others. It was only now that things were crystal clear. Help whoever you want to help. Don't differentiate between right and wrong. Don't care who you hurt. When had she ever taught her daughter that? The mother didn't understand. Perhaps such a problem would never be solved. That was because the girl was still instigating. "Mom, go find them and say that they are bullying the weak." The mother was probably born weak and was used to obeying her daughter. She didn't say a word and just covered her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. "All right, when you go find them, remember to wash your hair. How many times have I told you to bring a bag outside? Don't let others think that we are poor. If my classmates see it, how can I stay in school?" When Director Huang heard this, he couldn't take it anymore. He walked out, his expression never so stern. He looked at the girl with a deep gaze. The girl was caught and was stunned for a moment. Then, she did what she had to do. These words were all recorded. The members of the Key Case Investigation Unit felt like their worldview was going to shatter when they heard this. Were they getting old? What was wrong with kids nowadays? How could they not differentiate between right and wrong? You used your weakness to hurt others and don't know how to repent. You aren't just insulting the victim. You are also insulting your mother. Director Huang took a step forward. "Why did I arrest you? I put aside my identity to talk to you. It's simple, because you committed a crime. What's more terrifying is your way of thinking. Is being weak the right thing to do? I don't have money, so I want to rob you. I don't have a boyfriend, but your boyfriend is not bad, so I want to rob you. I'm too weak, but you're famous, so I want to rob you. How can you say that I'm wrong? I'm so weak and kind, so if you say that I'm wrong, you're just using your power to oppress me. Child, the most important thing in life is to have a conscience. Obviously, you don't have one. If you do too many evil things, retribution will come. With that, Director Huang walked out of the room. The girl was still unconvinced, so she took it out on her mother. Her words became more and more unpleasant. The mother stood there with a blank look on her face. Many people threw away their headphones, unable to continue listening. Director Huang arranged for the mother and daughter to meet to make the mother feel better. Now it seemed that what a person is like. It has nothing to do with family, or upbringing, or wealth. It was related to the heart. If it was completely black, there was no way to save it. Send her to the children's center. Director Huang had never been so determined. At this moment, the door of the crime squad opened as well. Someone came to visit. His surname was Bai and he was a well-known lawyer hired by Bo Jiao. Chapter 1061. Lawyer Bai's voice was neither fast nor slow. Director Huang coughed. The crime squad's funds are still needed to arrest people. What he meant was that he didn't have the funds to hire an expensive lawyer like Lawyer Bai to represent them. Director Huang, it seems like you've misunderstood me. Even though I value money as much as my life, I'm more than willing to take on such lawsuits for free because... Mr. Bai smiled. I like to beat dogs. Director Huang, you don't have to do it, you've already won with your eloquence. The night sky darkened. Wang Chuanlei wouldn't be unprepared. He would destroy other evidence, cut ties and say something at the right time. This was something everyone in the industry knew. But he was being watched. He wouldn't do anything personally. But at this stage, anyone who was related to him would want to protect him. Fighting for time was the key to winning the case. Once the truth of the case was revealed, the smaller cases involved would be determined as well. They had probably waited too long for this day. The crime squad members hid in the office, eating instant noodles as they searched for evidence. Every time they found something, they would reveal a delighted smile. Then they would take a huge mouthful of noodles. There was nothing more satisfying than that. They had chosen this profession. It was probably for this moment. To send the culprit to jail. Because only by punishing the culprit and restoring the truth could the survivors have hope. In reality, both Rao Rong and the old mother hugging her daughter's corpse. One of them had lost his father while the other had to send off his daughter. Both of them were hanging on by a thread of qi. They couldn't be defeated. They had to persevere. They couldn't allow the culprit to be punished. They couldn't be defeated. The old mother still had someone by her side. But Rao Rong had been relying on himself for the past year. Some people said that they couldn't see the shadow of the youth who had hugged his teammate with one arm, the radiant smile on his face anymore. Indeed, they couldn't see it anymore. All that was left of him was a pool of blood. The blood feud couldn't be appeased if it wasn't avenged. They had probably waited too long for this day. The crime squad members stretched lazily and walked out of the station, planning to calm down for a smoke. Rao Rong was standing outside, wearing a black coat that seemed to have been worn for a long time. Those who knew it looked familiar when they saw it. When they thought about it carefully, they remembered that the person who had led them liked to wear this coat to carry out missions. Rao Rong walked over with one hand in his pocket, his handsome face calm. I'm here to bring you evidence, everything regarding Wang Chuanlei. The ash fell from the cigarette, and the person who heard this was almost burned by the ash. Happiness came too easily. Originally, he thought that he would have to stay up all night, and there might not be anything that he could use. Right now, all his worries could be put to rest. Because Rao Rong was involved. 3 o'clock in the morning. Qin family. The young man lying on the bed had his handsome face turned sideways. His pale white lips moved slightly, and the sweat on his forehead never stopped. His dreams were muddled, especially the water, which always gave people the feeling that he was going to drown. Chapter 1062. It was a habit that she had developed over the years. The moment she woke up, she would always be in a state of alert. Bo Jiao had to shake him to clear her vision. But before she could do anything, a slightly cold hand touched her head and gently squeezed it. Even his voice was deep and magnetic, as if he hadn't slept all night. "Is your head not feeling well?" A long time ago, someone had said that if young Master Qin could be gentle, just his voice alone could mesmerize people. Bo Jiao swayed in his melodious voice, her consciousness slowly returning. When she realized where she was, her tensed body relaxed. "Brother Mo? It's me." Qin Mo lowered his gaze, kissing her hair. "Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere else?" Bo Jiao reached out and pointed at her own head. There was a hint of unhappiness on her handsome face. At that moment, it was as if a child had gotten into a fight outside and wanted his parents to pay attention to him. Qin Mo's fingers didn't move away from the head. The strength he used to massage it was comfortable. "Concussion after the explosion. Sleep for a while more, it will be better in the morning." Bo Jiao nodded and fell asleep. That was why he said that he was like a child, asking for candy and then sleeping. This time, she slept very comfortably. She held onto Qin Mo's sleeve with one hand. Her hair was wet with sweat, but it didn't affect her handsome face at all. There was one main point. In 2 days, the Almighty would be hers. There was no need to worry about a minor concussion. As for the things she was concerned about, Bo Jiao believed the Almighty would be able to handle them. That was true. Qin Mo had never left the youngster's side, but he had been commanding the entire time. Everyone, working so hard for so long just for one thing, to send the murderer to prison. Old people often say that the present cannot be compared to their time. Living conditions were better, but people's bravery was gone. If this had happened to them, they wouldn't have had the chance to speak after the crime had been committed. It was because he had an accomplice that Wang Chuanlei believed he had a chance of survival. The 2 cases were combined into one and then used to finalize the case. Whether the plagiarist only plagiarized or betrayed the original work after plagiarizing might not change the punishment much. But no matter what the truth was, it had to be made public. 7 in the morning. The crime squad tidied up the records and evidence Rao Rong had sent over. 8 o'clock in the morning. Although everyone was tired after a night, there was a spark in their eyes. This time, the members of the Major Crimes Division didn't rest. It could be said that they were all waiting for the same result. Rao Rong walked through the main entrance of the court. After entering, he still saw many people trying to protect him. They kept saying that even if their Almighty plagiarized, it wasn't wrong. One case was divided into 2 sides. Walking in front of Rao Rong was the original novel's mother. She acted as if she hadn't heard the voices around her, and her gaze was firm. Because she believed that there would always be a place that would give her justice. When Rao Rong saw this scene, he glanced sideways at the people who were still protecting the criminal. He walked past them, but he had never wished for victory more than now. He had already been suppressed by these accomplices once. This time, it wouldn't happen again. He believed that with Qin Mo around. "I won't let anyone get away with it." He pushed the door open and stood against the light. Chapter 1063. The judge spoke, and the lawyers returned to their seats. The people sitting below were all observers. Rao Rong stood there nonchalantly. But sometimes, even during the trial, the criminal might not admit to the crime. For example, Wang Chuanlei, before the trial, he would think of a way to escape. Everyone involved in the case knew what was going on. Wang Chuanlei probably thought he could do it again based on his past experience. His lawyer had also prepared a lot of materials, but these materials were basically useless. After the trial, the lawyer avoided the main point when he was asked about the reply to the text. At most, it can only be said to be a leak. Without confirming the other party's identity, the crime can't be established. Besides, I doubt the other party's evidence collection is legitimate. Director Huang had expected such a defense. Over the years, there were too many people who were used to quibbling. The judge discussed with the people beside him before replying, "The crime squad doesn't have any other evidence." "Yes." Rao Rong walked over, his gaze landing on Wang Chuanlei. A year ago, Wang Chuanlei won the honor of killing someone and used this honor to rise through the ranks. "I can provide all the evidence." Ever since he had seen Rao Rong, Wang Chuanlei's expression had changed. He had indeed wanted to be wary of Rao Rong, but in his heart, he didn't think Rao Rong would amount to anything. Even if Rao Rong had something, it wouldn't be a threat to him. After all, he hadn't had the chance to show the evidence back then. Some people were still protecting him and they didn't believe in the evidence. Wang Chuanlei didn't know that it was because of his lowly life. Rao Rong was no longer the hot-blooded youngster who believed in everyone. Now he had stepped forward, all for the sake of getting justice back. This time, no one would be able to stop him. As they exchanged glances, Wang Chuanlei seemed to understand something. The hatred in Rao Rong's eyes made him lose his composure. The judge ordered for the evidence to be presented. Rao Rong's current situation was unique. Almost everyone knew that his father had been framed due to the previous exposure. It was just that there was no way to confirm who the person behind this was. We need to verify the evidence. That was because there wasn't any personal grudge involved. Even if everyone knew what was going on, they had to have enough evidence before they could be sentenced. The verification of evidence had to be done according to procedures. No one knew what would happen during this period of time. Just as the judge was about to announce that the case would be adjourned for a retrial tomorrow. There's other evidence. Suddenly, a clear and distinct voice came from the door. It was a young man wearing a dark red t-shirt and matching earrings with shimmering black fragments. His handsome face was exposed to everyone's sight. Rao Rong's eyes widened when he saw the slight curve of his lips and the way he strode over with one hand on his belt. Bojo. She sat up from the bed with a white bandage wrapped around her head. She looked like a beautiful sickly man. Chapter 1064. It was just 5 words. Wang Chuanlei almost lost his footing. Everything else was fine. Other than Rao Rongqing, who else could prove that he hadn't killed anyone? When checking the evidence, he could take this time to clean up the loose ends. But drug trafficking. Everyone knew what this meant. Director Huang was undoubtedly the most excited among them. He turned around and looked at the tall man on his left. I have to say, even though you two are quite annoying, you're still so useful at the crucial moment. China Mo didn't speak, just glancing at him. On the other hand, Lawyer Bai pushed his spectacles up and walked down the stairs. He probably knew that the high school student who hired him would appear. However, he didn't expect it to be like this. His head was broken? Bojo noticed Lawyer Bai's gaze. How should she put it? There wasn't anything wrong with her head, she just had a slight concussion. She wanted to come out, but the Almighty was worried and personally wrapped a white bandage around her. At that time, the Almighty looked at her as if he was looking at a naughty child and even told her to sit still. What else could she say? As a domineering CEO, she had to give in to her little secretary, even if she had to go out to work. But she also protested, it's just a concussion, there's no need to make it so eye-catching, right? Didn't the novels you read tell you that sometimes a concussion can cause amnesia? If the Almighty didn't have a sharp tongue, he wouldn't be the Almighty. The fact that he liked to dig up her dark history probably couldn't be changed. Now that she thought about it, she wanted to reply, you're the one who lost your memory, not me. Lawyer Bai followed the young man's gaze and roughly understood what was going on. His lips curled into a smile as he walked towards the judge. Since the beginning, the other party has been denying the evidence we have provided, but he has never said why he leaked the secret. Having such a loophole in a confidential meeting is itself a dereliction of duty. Moreover, more and more evidence shows that he not only leaked the secret, but also committed murder and drug trafficking. We will file a lawsuit. Please sentence him to death in accordance with the law. When the word death sentence came out of Lawyer Bai's mouth, Wang Chuanlei's legs gave way, and his face turned extremely pale. More importantly, every piece of evidence presented by the USB drive pointed to the truth. Wang Chuanlei couldn't escape. Rao Rong's tightly clenched fists finally loosened after the judge's verdict. But at this moment, however, the other party's lawyer retorted and pointed out a point. Regardless of whether your father is a hero or not, no matter how wronged he is, you've joined a criminal organization. Even if you haven't committed any atrocities, Rao Rong should still be imprisoned. Hearing this, Bojo tightened her grip. Lawyer Bai wanted to say something. Rao Rong removed his jacket, stretching his arms out. He was wearing a white shirt, his back straight. He did not say a word. However, She had tacitly agreed to the suggestion of sending him to prison. Director Huang wanted to step forward. Qin Mo reached out to block him. Rao Rong lifted his lids, glancing at the handcuffs on his wrists. Suddenly, he broke into a smile, clean and gentle, just like the youngster who had led a strong esports team, waved the mouse and won the honor. I don't regret it. When I come out again, Qin Mo, I will be as innocent as you. He had chosen this method to avenge his father's death. Chapter 1065. In this world, there was no turning back. Perhaps at the very beginning. If the people who had protected Wang Chuanlei had been able to distinguish right from wrong, they wouldn't have forced Rao Rong to choose such a method of farewell. But there was no maybe. It's all over, he thought. He could finally have a good sleep. Let go of the hatred and sleep. They brushed past each other. Rao Rong paused beside the youngster's feet, speaking in a voice only the two of them could hear. Thank you, Z. Z. It wasn't Spade Z. It was Z. The intelligent Bo Jiao quickly realized that he had found out about her identity. After all, it was possible that the mission Fan Jia had given Rao Rong was to infiltrate the esports industry and target her. Rao Rong must have noticed something during their interaction. Bo Jiao didn't reply. She didn't admit or deny it. Rao Rong smiled. There's another case. Let me know the outcome once it's over. Perhaps, only those who had experienced it would understand empathy. Rao Rong paid attention to that case. It was because he knew that there was a group of people who couldn't tell right from wrong that were protecting a criminal. He knew that someone would become the second him. He knew very well what it was like to feel that way. The evidence was in his hands, but there was no way to sue heaven. He was young and could handle it. How could that mother endure such heart-wrenching pain? Bo Jiao glanced up. Just as he was about to disappear, she said, Don't worry. Okay. Clang. The metal door slammed shut. They glanced at each other. Without hesitation, they walked to the next door. Lawyer Bai was with them so they could speak. This case was difficult because the system wasn't perfect. Fortunately, there was enough evidence. But even so, the opposing party's lawyer still asked a very shameless question on the spot. Before saying that someone else stole it, can the original author guarantee that he didn't steal it? After all, there are many works of the same genre. It's not valid to say that the author plagiarized the work. That's right, it doesn't make sense. So what if my almighty plagiarized it? It's better than the original author. I like his writing. You sure are troublesome. You just won't let go of almighty Wu Men. You're bullying my almighty. Probably for money. When the judge heard this, he frowned and looked at the mother. The lawyer took advantage of these voices. Also, my client wasn't as popular as the other party in the beginning. Is the other party trying to use his popularity to bully my client? Bo Jiao knew that no matter how uncultured her mother was, she could still understand what others were saying and understood the situation. When she looked up, her eyes met the man's lips, which were about to break. Bo Jiao stuffed a hand into her pocket. Suddenly, she picked up the mop beside her and swung it towards the handle of the row of seats. The girls who were still talking froze. Bo Jiao waved her left hand and knocked on it. There wasn't a hint of a smile in her eyes. Continue, I'm listening. Director Huang had tagged along. When he saw this scene, he shot Qin Mo a look. It seemed to be saying, don't go too far with the person you're in charge of. This is a court. What if someone catches you? But reality proved that Bo Jiao had a sense of propriety, her voice rising once more. Lawyer Bai, explain to them in detail what plagiarism is. Chapter 1066. Plagiarism is the act of stealing or modifying someone else's work, using the same method to copy the work completely or partially, or altering the form or content to a certain extent. Lawyer Bai walked forward. Firstly, the other party's defense is intentionally distorting the main body of the argument, using plagiarism as a joke. Under normal circumstances, plagiarism isn't determined based on the subject matter. There are many similar books like fantasy, CEO, level up, esports, entertainment, etc. There might even be similarities due to the description, which is normal. But what isn't normal is when there is a plot unique to the original author. The other party's action is to use the original plot or add words to make it their own. This isn't a joke. It's a copy. Lawyer Bai spoke slowly, reading the sentence clearly. Also, the most important aspect of a work is the soul of the character, which is what we call the main character. It's simple. Take the rebirth as an example. There isn't anything wrong with writing about a high school student, but our main character wears earrings, skateboards, likes to climb walls, and gets beaten up for being a gay. There are a bunch of overbearing CEO books on the bookshelf, which the main character uses as a black mark. This is an original plot, but why is it the same for your side? There are also other major plots that are copied and written in the hands of your excellency. Lawyer Bai paused for a moment before continuing. As for what you said about plagiarizing or not, it's your business if you don't care. After all, not everyone has a conscience. My point of view is that we can forgive unintentional mistakes, but we will never forgive those who plagiarize and then accuse the original. There's no point in pretending to be weak. What matters here is the truth, not acting. Sometimes, having a good voice was a good thing. Besides, every lawyer would clearly convey the message they wanted to convey. Some of them weren't convinced and wanted to speak up. The judge looked at the evidence, comparing it against every frame. Bo Jiu stood at the side of the loudest, reminding Lawyer Bai, "You forgot the most important point." Lawyer Bai followed the young man's gaze, his gaze landing on the mother who was forcing herself to stand up straight. According to our country's constitution, compensation is the rightful amount of compensation. Perhaps you've never heard of it, but during the trial, my guardian mentioned the amount of compensation, 1 renminbi. A beggar wouldn't even ask for such a small amount of money. After traveling for 36 days, from the county to the provincial city, from the provincial city to here, I've put in so much effort. From start to end, all I want is justice. Of course, even if my guardian succeeds, you'll still say that you like both books and don't care how it came about. But remember, you'll always be an accomplice. Even Director Huang was stunned by what he heard. He turned towards Bo Jiu. "I've finally witnessed the power of words. It's expensive after all." Bo Jiu glanced at the time on her phone. Lawyer Bai really charged by the second, but the money spent was worth it since it would be able to control the situation. As Lawyer Bai's closing argument, he had said everything he needed to say. The three judges glanced at each other. Chapter 1067. These 5 minutes weren't peaceful at all. It wasn't easy to get a fair treatment for such a case in China. Besides, there were so many people protecting the other party. The funniest thing was that the defendant didn't even attend the hearing. Only her representative appeared. This meant that all the pressure from the public was on the mother. She seemed especially calm at this moment. After 5 minutes, the hearing resumed. Her hands weren't as tense as before. She stood there innocently, waiting for an answer. The judge announced, "The defendant is guilty of plagiarism." The mother didn't laugh. Instead, she reached out to cover her mouth. She wanted to cry, but she suppressed her emotions. She looked at her bracelet. "Daughter, did you hear that? Everything that should be returned to you has been returned to you." There would still be people who wouldn't accept the verdict and would complain. But at this moment, it didn't seem to matter. Perhaps, those who couldn't tell right from wrong would never understand that they weren't being kind, they were being cruel. But that wasn't important anymore. Bo Jiu watched as the mother's shoulders trembled and she started to cry uncontrollably. She stood there, not leaving. She placed the mop in her hands back to its original position. She didn't even bother to look at them. The entire case was announced in the newspaper. Although the details weren't revealed, the outcome was clear. Bo Jiu stood outside for a while. She wanted to smoke. But when she reached into her pocket, she realized that she had promised the Almighty to quit smoking. She removed the candy wrapper and placed it in her mouth. The matter here was settled. It was time to plan in detail how she was going to kidnap the Almighty. Qin Mo had expected to see a cold and listless fox. After all, the youngster's expression had started to show some emotions. He didn't expect to see the youngster rubbing his palms together when he turned around to see the youngster rubbing his fists in anticipation after telling him how to deal with the aftermath. "What are you up to again?" Qin Mo walked over, pulling her towards him as he glanced at her head. Bo Jiu felt that she didn't look good with such a curse on her. But she didn't want to lie, so she decided to compromise. I'm thinking about the filming in America. I wonder how long it will take. You can ask about the schedule. Qin Mo touched the bandage on the youngster's head and casually changed the topic. Let's go back to sleep. Bo Jiao had slept for a long time and was still energetic. I just woke up. Do you want to play ball? I'm sleepy. Qin Mo held her hand and walked forward as though there was no one else around. The two of them were still as compatible as ever. Bo Jiao enjoyed watching the Almighty sleep. Who wouldn't like to watch him sleep? Besides, the Almighty was so domineering that he could only fall asleep hugging her as a pillow. He wouldn't allow her to run around. At noon, Bo Jiao closed her eyes along with the Almighty. Later on, she also wanted to be more honest. As a result, the princess was always walking back and forth in front of her like a cat, snorting from time to time. Bo Jiao suppressed the provocation with her brute force and pulled Princess out. It was commonly known as catwalking. Dusk was approaching. Many people in the courtyard were walking their dogs. Walking the cat? The princess' big flat cat face exploded. Chapter 1068. Bo Jiao was slightly surprised when she received Lin Feng's call. Senior, what's wrong? There's something that I need to discuss with you. For some reason, Lin Feng's tone sounded very different from other times. Bo Jiao's fingers stilled. She held on to Princess, her voice calm. Speak. In less than half a month, Yun Hu will be leaving the country. He's talking to Feng Yi now. I think he's leaving the team. Lin Feng took a puff of his cigarette. Bo Jiao wasn't sure where he was now. Actually, when Lin Feng had heard the news, he had wanted to discuss something with Feng Yi. He hadn't expected the office door to be left open, allowing him to hear everything. He has quite a number of fans. If he leaves the team just like that, there will definitely be a lot of people who won't understand. Lin Feng leaned against the wall, looking at his fingers. Even if they understand, no one will be able to accept it. Rather than letting the media spread the news, why don't we tell everyone? Bo Jiao paused, returning to the previous question. Leaving the team? That's right, after he goes overseas, he definitely won't be able to undergo the same intensive training as before. Besides, he has always wanted to do research. Lin Feng's voice was calm. I was the one who pulled him into the esports team. Bo Jiao could sense Lin Feng's bad mood. She carried Princess up with one hand and poked him casually, the other holding onto her phone. How do you intend to tell everyone? As a cat of noble birth, Princess's big face was obviously helpless. His claws couldn't reach the youngster. Everything was useless. Lin Feng smiled. We can hold a farewell party and invite his fans. You can dress as a girl. Bo Jiao took a moment before giving a direct answer. Even though Lin Feng was feeling down, he couldn't bring himself to feel depressed. The corners of his mouth twitched. F***CK. Don't we still have the Asian Cup? It's less than a month, isn't it? In her heart, Supreme Alliance wouldn't be Supreme Alliance without anyone. Lin Feng tossed the cigarette into the bin and straightened his back. Feng Yi has discussed this with the organizers. With Supreme Alliance's current power, they aren't able to defend against external enemies. The Asian Cup concerns China's reputation and captain's condition is unknown. With Yun Hu's withdrawal, we won't be able to win against the other Asian teams, much less the Japanese. Hence, he suggested for Xiangnan to participate in the Asian Cup. The organizers have already given a reply. Both teams are to prepare and we will see which team is stronger. He was already prepared to not participate in the competition. Bo Jiao had an idea. At the same time, she understood that it wasn't appropriate for Supreme Alliance to continue fighting. Just as Lin Feng had said, Supreme Alliance had two generals that couldn't participate. The Asian Cup wasn't a domestic competition. Under such circumstances, sending Xiangnan out was the wisest choice. Feng Yi wouldn't have made this decision on his own. He must have asked the Almighty. Bo Jiao lowered her lids. Every player's greatest wish was to fight for their country. It was just that everyone knew that the National League was probably the last battle. After this, no one knew how long it would take for Supreme Alliance to rise again. Chapter 1069. Yes, even if he had to leave openly. Rather than letting others speculate about him in the future, it would be better to bid farewell to everyone. I still have 3 days left. 3 days later, Brother Mo and I will head overseas to treat his hand. Bo Jiu had always been a person of action. Let's think about how to organize the farewell party. Lin Feng blew his hair. That's simple, we can perform something. Piano? Bo Jiu suggested. Lin Feng arched a brow. Little spade. Let's do something normal. Piano isn't normal. Bo Jiu couldn't understand Senior Lin Feng's thoughts. Lin Feng replied, the venue will be cold, don't forget, there will be fans. Oh right, how do we contact the fans? Bo Jiu asked. At this point, Lin Feng had an idea that he hadn't realized. Why don't we look for a fan meeting? Your official fan club president and my fan club president will be together. Then we'll ask Captain and Yunhu out. It would be better to discuss with them during this farewell meeting. Indeed. They had to be mentally prepared to leave the team. Lin Feng, on the other hand, wasn't naive. After you hang up, use your Weibo to contact your people. My Weibo is fake. Bo Jiu pulled Princess back. Lin Feng spoke in a Beijing accent. You don't have to worry about that. Other fans might mistake you for someone else, but your official fan club leader wouldn't mistake you for someone else. When are you free today? Find a chance to meet her. We're only inviting local fans this time, so there won't be a lot of them. As for the program, aren't you the school hunk? MH, Bo Jiu replied faintly. Even if you want to sing, we have to sing together. Me? You want me to sing? Lin Feng wasn't bothered. If you have the courage to listen, I have the courage to sing. Bo Jiu was still inexperienced and didn't understand that some people were so good at singing that they couldn't be taught. When she realized the problem, it was already too late. The more Lin Feng spoke, the more excited he became. Speaking of which, this is my first time meeting someone. As someone with experience, Bo Jiu replied calmly, it's nothing, Brother Mo and I only got to know each other after we met. How can I be compared to you? I have the burden of being an idol. I'll go and contact someone first. Come out at 5 o'clock. Is there a problem? Lin Feng put away his bad mood. Bo Jiu thought for a moment. She glanced up and scanned the walls of the Qin family's house. It wasn't easy for her to climb in, but no one would care if she climbed out. Sure. That's settled then. Where shall we meet? He had to tell them the location of the meeting. 5 p.m.? Bo Jiu took a moment. Huda, you don't have to queue at that time. The atmosphere wouldn't be awkward if they talked while eating. In some ways she was really witty. But there was one thing. Contacting fans on Weibo had to be low-key. According to Lin Feng's intentions, he didn't want everyone to know first. With that in mind, she decided to walk the cat for another round and use this time to contact someone. Princess's heart was really tired. With a big round face, she was resolutely staring at a Samoyed. Meow, why are they all taller than me? The old men who were walking their dogs also thought it was interesting that the young man was walking with a cat in the yard. Chapter 1070. At this moment, Bo Jiu noticed the gazes of the old men. She decided to keep a low profile. She carried Princess and sat on the steps. Brother, let's discuss something. Who's your brother? Aren't you embarrassed to call me brother? Where's your bottom line? Meow. I can't accept it. Princess raised his big face and paced back and forth. He felt that walking in circles wasn't bad. All the tall men left in fear when they saw him. Not bad, not bad. Bo Jiu couldn't understand why a cat would be so proud. She watched as he challenged Samoyed valiantly with his claws extended. Samoyed didn't even look at him. He ignored him and lowered his head to sniff the bushes. Helpless, the princess even turned her head around and raised her face high. She looked as if she had been scared away by this young master. Bo Jiu felt that it was better to go through Weibo. After all, it was tiring to watch a cat's inner drama. Bo Jiu logged into her account and password. Due to the overwhelming number of messages, her phone was stuck. Fortunately, the official fan account was easy to find. She just didn't know if the person on Weibo was there at this time. After all, she couldn't use WeChat all the time. Bo Jiao moved her fingers and sent a question mark over. She thought she would have to wait for a while. Unexpectedly, there was an instant reply. It's a living adult. Since it's so lively, it shouldn't be a tortoise, Bo Jiao replied. The person on the other end was obviously agitated. Sir, I'm her secretary. The general manager is out. Tell her to meet me at 5 in the afternoon at Huda. The other presidents of the fan club will be there too. If she isn't free, she can leave me a message. Bo Jiao sucked on a lollipop. After she was done typing, she leaned back with one arm and sat lazily. She freed one hand and caressed Princess's chin. Brother, come. Let's continue our conversation. Help me set up a cover at 5 o'clock. Princess wouldn't agree to it. He started his inner drama again. Her Weibo chimed. Bo Jiao retracted her hand. There were only 3 words. I'll be there. Okay. After she was done, Bo Jiao stood up, stuffing a hand into her pocket. Before she entered, she didn't forget to size up the walls and balcony. The princess narrowed her eyes and extended her claws again. What do you want? Why are you so interested in my nest? The princess nests on the balcony. Bo Jiao lowered her lids and headed up to the 2nd floor alone. The Almighty was still asleep. Soft light shone in, creating a halo of light. His messy black hair only made him look more elegant and noble. That was all the beauty in the world could do. Bo Jiao walked over and found a spot that belonged to her. She turned sideways and wanted to lie down. At this moment, his wrist was suddenly grabbed by someone. Even his head was pressed against his chest, filled with the scent of peppermint and sandalwood. I heard from the guys in the military that you're a good cat walker. Bo Jiao's gaze shifted, landing on the blinking phone screen. I didn't expect Brother Mo to have such a wide circle of friends. We're from the same compound. It's only natural that we know each other. Qin Mo didn't open his eyes. He was probably still sleepy. But at this moment, his voice was hoarse and deep. He told me that your little friend is very interesting. He's walking the cat behind us. He's an old general. Chapter 1071. Qin Mo didn't receive a reply. When he opened his eyes, he saw the youngster's slightly depressed expression. It was a pretty face. Why? Can't you treat me as a little kid? Qin Mo asked as he touched her head, probably to check if the bandage was still there. Bo Jiao had forgotten about it. She would have to remove the bandage before heading out. It's sad to be treated as a kid even though you're already an adult. I thought the main point of my sentence was my home. With that, he closed his eyes. Sleep for a while more. My home? Bo Jiao suppressed the urge to kiss him. She listened to the Almighty's heartbeat and replied, Sleep. Qin Mo really needed to rest. That was why he went back to sleep after that. Bo Jiao waited for almost half an hour before standing up. The Almighty had indeed been watching her. It wasn't an illusion. The people outside the Qin family's house seemed to be following her wherever she went. But it wasn't impossible for her to shake them off. It was a good opportunity to spar with them and test their skills. It would be easy to kidnap the Almighty. Bo Jiao pondered as she walked into the bathroom. It was 2:30 p.m. The courtyard was quite a distance from Hu University. No matter what, he had to change his clothes. This was a sign of respect for gay activities. But after searching for half a day, she could only wear a dark red t-shirt. She added a thin hooded jacket. The jacket wasn't really meant to be worn. She wore a black watch band on her fair wrist, its surface reflecting light as she moved. She bit the pen cap and wrote a note to the Almighty, stating the reason. Once everything was arranged, she went downstairs. There were people at the 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock directions. Bo Jiao arched a brow. She walked to the wall and placed Princess under the shade. She smiled and escaped. The jacket was held up by the tree branches. From other directions, only the corner of the jacket could be seen. It seemed as though Bo Jiao was squatting and playing with the cat. In reality, the youngster had already kicked with her long legs. Using the force, she reached out and leaped onto the wall handsomely, landing swiftly and cleanly. The dark red t-shirt matched with the youngster's bright smile. It was both handsome and devilish. However, it was a little awkward. When she looked up, she saw the two old men looking at her and shaking their heads. The little kid that Qin Mo brought back is mischievous again. It's normal for children to climb over walls. Those eyes were filled with love. Bojo coughed and was about to speak. Little friend, go ahead. There are so many people looking at you. I don't know what that cold brat is thinking. Just don't go and not come back. I'll be back once I'm done. Thank you, Grandpas. He waved his hand, implying that he did not mind. After that, the two old men continued to focus their attention on the chessboard. They were indeed like generals. The first thing Bojo did when she left the courtyard was to contact Lin Feng. How is it? I'm already here, why aren't you here yet? Lin Feng's voice was lazy. Hurry up, it's hot outside. Bojo didn't understand. If it's hot, enter the shop first. Not entering. Lin Feng was still a little awkward. It's my first time meeting a gay man, and it's all girls there. It'll be so awkward if I go to the table. When you come, we can go in together. Bojo, why are you looking for a girlfriend when you're so shy? You should just stick with Almighty Yun. Chapter 1072. Lin Feng, who was walking in and out of Huda, was dressed to the nines. He was wearing a mask and a hat, and the only thing that could be seen was his eyes. Those who didn't know better would think that he was using a secret signal to communicate with others. But he had to. Supreme Alliance was at its peak right now. Popular players like Bojo, Lin Feng, and Yun who were easily recognized when they went out. But when he saw Bojo, Lin Feng felt depressed. Why did he look like a lunatic when he dressed up? She was wearing a black mask and a dark red t-shirt, which made her look even more handsome. She was completely different from him. Let's go in, Bojo said, pushing the door open. At this point, Lin Feng felt that he had lost again. He tidied up his appearance and strode in as well. The base meeting was on the same day. The people invited were all the president of the fan club. In reality, there weren't many people. But there was one girl who took the high-speed train from Lin City. They were really excited since they had never met their Almighty in such a manner. Just as the girls were having a friendly conversation, one of them glanced up and caught sight of the youngster walking over. The youngster was wearing a black mask and a matching earring, which made his eyes seem deep. He was still holding his phone in his hand, and he looked natural and handsome as he walked over. After seeing his silver-gray hair, the girls were already a little stunned by his handsomeness. Bojo was carefree, sitting down when she saw a seat. She reached out and flipped the menu. Everyone is here, what do you want to eat? They were surprised that they had entered the ordering phase so quickly. The girls felt as though they were still in a dream. But the person in front of them was indeed Big Spade. Almighty Lin isn't here yet, one of the girls said softly. Bojo reached out and removed the black mask. She supported the side of her face with one hand and tilted her head, smiling. He's here but he needs to prepare himself mentally. The girl was originally the president of Uncle Yin's fan club. When she saw the youngster's smile, she froze. All the girls felt that Big Spade's face was too lethal after removing his mask. He was so handsome that they couldn't concentrate. In addition, everyone was very excited at this time. They couldn't suppress the smiles on their faces, and their hearts were beating faster. Lin Feng felt the same way. After all, he had never met his fans in this way before. But they still had to meet. Therefore, Lin Feng, who pretended to be cool, followed closely behind. Only then did everyone arrive. Bojo started ordering. Since the girls weren't looking at the menu anymore, they were all staring at the two of them. When they got excited, they would grab the hands of the people around them. They were all here to see their Almighty. Now that their wishes had come true, of course they were happy. The dishes Bojo ordered were all meat, but since there was a girl around, she ordered 2 more plates of vegetables and a fruit salad. The girls couldn't control their wildly beating hearts. Someone asked Bojo, "Can Big Spade take a photo?" Bojo glanced over but didn't reply. That person immediately explained. His voice was filled with unconcealable joy. "We won't take pictures of our faces. We'll just take pictures of our hands together to tell everyone that we're meeting up." Chapter 1073. Sure. Lin Feng placed his hand on her shoulder. He was rather forthright now. Bo Jiu didn't object, smiling faintly as she nodded. The person in charge of taking photos used a selfie stick. After raising the mobile phone, everyone stretched out 2 fingers and put them together. After piecing them together, it was a very tall and beautiful picture. That person took a glance, thinking that Big Spade's hands with the black ring would definitely go crazy if it was released. That was the truth. Initially, the person had uploaded the photo with the intention of showing off the delicacies. Who would have known that every fan club president would have such a change? After adding 1, the photo went viral immediately. Gay meetup? Who is it? I heard it's with Big Spade and Almighty Lin. It's a pity I'm not from here, it's too far. Ah, gay meetup. There were some who reacted slowly. After seeing the photo, they started to search for clues. Big Spade and Almighty Lin are among them? Look at the hands, don't you think 2 of the fingers are too outstanding? It was indeed outstanding. The black ring was eye-catching. If this isn't my Big Spade's hand, I'll swallow my keyboard. Oh, I'm going crazy. I'm so envious of the people who can attend the meetup. I heard from my good friend, they're eating now, they'll be going to KTV later. I wanted to block out her moments, but now I can't wait to understand the entire process. It would be nice to listen to the live broadcast. The official fan clubs at S and comments never stopped. On this day, everyone was restless. The girls who came to attend the meetup were even more excited until Lin Feng mentioned the farewell party. The atmosphere suddenly fell into a stillness. It was as though a party had just ended and everyone was still yearning for more. Then, it was announced that everything had ended and there wouldn't be a next time. Perhaps, it was even heavier than that. Because everyone knew in their hearts. Regardless of who was missing, Supreme Alliance would never be the same again. Besides, it was Yuan Hu who was leaving. Other than Yuan Hu, Almighty Qin would be heading overseas to recuperate and Spade would be following him. Which meant that Supreme Alliance would lose 3 members. They would be torn apart. That was everyone's first thought. It wasn't a good feeling. Especially for them, esports fans. Some of the fan leaders were already very old. When they liked Supreme Alliance, they hadn't dated yet. That was when they were still in university. It was the first time they understood the world. No matter what, as long as you worked hard, you could change the outcome. When they first met Supreme Alliance, it was at its peak. At that time, Almighty Qin held a gun and entered the territory alone. No one dared to get close to him. At that time, Lin Da and Yun Da were still rookies with strong personalities. Although his playstyle wasn't that skillful, it gave people unlimited expectations. Later on, Supreme Alliance hit a low point, but it had never been so miserable. If there was anything that was the most unbearable, that was their helplessness at that time. However, it was still this group of people who had leapt up step by step from the lowest point. They were the true kings who had returned, their sharpness unstoppable. Just when they thought that they could continue to accompany them like this, everything was over. They knew very well that the lifespan of esports players wasn't too long. After all, hand speed and age mattered. Chapter 1074. When is Almighty Yun leaving? After a long while, someone asked. Lin Feng had expected such an atmosphere, but now that it was like this, he felt even worse. Half a month later. If he doesn't report, it will affect him too. Brother Mo and I will be flying in 3 days. Bo Jiu placed the cola in her hand down. I wanted to ask how many locals or nearby people you can gather for the next 2 days so that everyone can come over to play and bid farewell. No one spoke. The lively atmosphere wouldn't come back. The president of the Feng Yun fan club tilted her head, her voice hoarse. I'll try my best. The person beside her patted her shoulder. At this moment, everyone felt the same. But at the same time, they understood that if you really like someone, you should let him live his life according to his wishes. You shouldn't use your liking to make him stay. After the discussion was over, the end of the base meetup was brought forward. Under such circumstances, no one seemed to be in the mood to get high. The one who felt the worst was the president who had followed Yun Hu all the way. When she boarded the train, she didn't know why but her throat felt uncomfortable. Actually everyone knew. This might be the last time they would see their idol. It wasn't in real life. But in the future, there wouldn't be a shadow of that person in every competition. Even Supreme Alliance would gradually disappear from everyone's sight. If you had really liked a person or a group of people, you would understand how it felt. Hence, the painstaking organization sent a message to everyone who was here. They even said that they wanted everyone to come. They couldn't tell them the reason. But they knew that if they didn't come this time, it would be a lifelong regret. After Lin Feng and Bo Jiu sent them to the car, they found a place and lit up a cigarette. F***ck, I felt terrible when I saw her like that. Lin Feng caressed his hair, leaning against the wall, his eyes looking up at the sky. It would be great if I could play games for the rest of my life. But people have to grow up, right? For example, when you were young, you realized that this person was the most suitable person for you. When you come into contact with more outstanding people, you will realize that there is actually someone more suitable for you. Bo Jiu tilted her head and paused. She threw the cigarette into the bin and wore her mask. She stuffed one hand into her pocket. No, it's because of that person. That person has appeared before. No matter how outstanding the people I will meet in the future, they won't be able to compare to him. That's right. She paused for a moment before continuing. What happened between you and Almighty Yun? Lin Feng lowered his eyes and took 2 puffs of his cigarette. He smiled and said, "What can happen between us? It's just that my best friend suddenly left the country. I'm not used to it." Bo Jiu wanted to see Lin Feng's expression, but all she could see was his handsome face, which was covered by his hair. She couldn't see anything. However, he vaguely felt that something was different. It was hard to describe. Chapter 1075. When Coco received the call, he was still in the midst of a live stream. When he heard the news, he switched off the channel. What did you say? Lin Feng is going to sing. He bit the bunny's ear. I don't want to participate. I strongly reject. Rejection is invalid. It's a group activity. We'll be near the club at midnight. Come over with Feng Shang. Even though that was what Bo Jiu said, she was still a little doubtful after the call ended. She glanced at Lin Feng. How bad is your singing for Coco to reject you? Lin Feng held her arm. Let me tell you, it's a long story. You'll see how good I am in a while. Bo Jiu. Was singing badly a form of pride now? When they reached the KTV, Bo Jiu realized that it wasn't because of his singing. Every line Lin Feng sang wasn't in tune. He should have been in tune, but for some reason, he went up, making it difficult for Coco to find the tune again. Bo Jiu finally understood what it meant to be in tune. To a listener, it was a form of destruction. How could he perform for the fans with such a standard? Bo Jiu reached out and rubbed her temples. She thought for a moment and stopped playing the guitar. This won't do. Lin Feng arched a brow. Why do I find it nice? Look at what I sang just now. There's finally a tune. There are so many lines, but you only managed to tune one line. Bo Jiu brought the guitar over with a smile. How did you do it? Lin Feng didn't speak. He had a feeling that if he spoke another word, Little Spade would smack him with his guitar. Coco placed his earplugs down and jumped over with the bunny in his arms. He was exhilarated. What did I say, Little Spade? You can't let this guy sing. There are so many twists and turns. Bo Jiu glanced at them. How's your coordination? Black belt in Taekwondo. Lin Feng was best at martial arts with his legs. Bo Jiu sized him up. Since you can't sing, you can dance. After you dance, you can even move your lips. Lin Feng. What the hell? What songs do youngsters like these days? Bo Jiu scrolled back and forth in the KTV song selection area. Coco and Feng Shang looked at each other. You're the youngest here. Bo Jiu paused for a moment before smiling. That seems to be the case. Most of the Supreme Alliance's fans were similar to her. There were many students. It was a parting occasion, so there was no need to be so unhappy. Bo Jiu slid open the chart and listened to the top 3 songs. In the end, she settled on the middle song. This one. Coco, Lin Feng, and even Feng Shang froze at that moment. Their expressions were hard to describe. This song? Yes, this one. Bo Jiu made the final decision. The other three looked like they had nothing left to live for. It was all thanks to Weibo this time. When Bo Jiu returned to the Qin family, it was still peaceful. But it was only peaceful. Bo Jiu walked into the house. Auntie Zhang, who came out with a cup of tea, pointed behind her with her chin and said in a low voice, "The young master is in the study." In this situation, Bo Jiu could only turn and walk towards the study. In the study, Qin Mo was nearing the end of the call. On the other end, Magician insisted on an answer. "Boss, who exactly is this young Master Fu? He saved the entire ship single-handedly and knows how to make use of the surroundings to minimize the impact of the explosion. Who exactly is he? Do you really like him? Or are you attracted to his capabilities and want to recruit him?" Someone could vaguely be heard saying, "Is there something wrong with your brain? Boss's attitude clearly says that he likes her." I didn't expect the boss to be gay. If I had known earlier, I would have been more careful when I showered in the platoon. No, that's not right. If I had known the boss was gay, I would have been in a favorable position. Anyway, the boss is so handsome. No matter how I think about it, it's not a loss. Qin Mo allowed them to make a ruckus. In the end he asked faintly, "Are you done?" 4 words. It was a solemn silence. You just have to remember to protect her family. As for other things, don't say anything. Even if Huang Guohua asks, there are some things I have to investigate. Alright, I'm hanging up. Someone is coming in. Indeed, someone was coming. It was Bo Jiu. She was feeling a little guilty, but even so, she maintained her lazy attitude. "Brother Mo, tea." She looked so obedient. Qin Mo glanced at the youngster and placed his phone on the table. He leaned back, his left hand still wrapped in bandages. Since when did the wall-hopping student rely on a cat to divert her attention? The almighty's sharp tongue was so artistic. How was she supposed to respond? "What are you and Lin Feng doing?" Qin Mo tapped the screen, probably because he had seen the message. Bo Jiu sat down, her gaze deep. She still looked like a rich young master even though her sitting posture wasn't proper. "We want to hold a farewell party." After hearing these 3 words, Qin Mo could almost guess the cause and effect. After a while, he opened his mouth. "Which day?" Bo Jiu replied, "Tomorrow." Mage. Bo Jiu assumed that was the end of the matter. But the next second, Qin Mo spoke again. "Next time, if you want to go out, go through the front door. It won't be good if the grandpas in the courtyard see you when you climb the wall. What do you think?" Bo Jiu paused, feeling depressed again. Didn't he promise not to tell Brother Mo? She didn't expect him to be so passionate about gossip no matter how old he was. "Come here." Qin Mo looked at the youngster's expression and smiled. Bo Jiu arched a brow. She placed both hands on the table and leaned over. Qin Mo moved slightly and reached out, pressing the back of the youngster's head. It was a sweet kiss. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The lights, the starry sky, and the reflection from the window landed in the study room. Everything seemed incomparably peaceful. It seemed that other than the sound of a heartbeat, nothing else could be heard. Even Madame Zhang, who was secretly observing, didn't enter again. The night grew darker. Even though both of them were in the Qin family's house. But they did live in 2 rooms. Ever since Bo Jiu moved in, Qin Mo seemed to have an extra job, which was to tell a certain someone a bedtime story. Qin Mo had always thought that this kind of thing was only enjoyed by children. But it was obvious that the person sleeping on the bed wasn't very mature mentally. Qin Mo reached out and pushed the silver hair in front of the youngster's forehead away. His gaze deepened. Then he walked out of the room and went to the courtyard. Very soon, a military vehicle drove over from the other side. There was a swoosh. A person came down from the car. That person was wearing glasses. Although he was wearing a white coat, there was no way to link such a devilish-looking man with the word doctor. "Boss, you asked me to come at this time. It's really strange. People who don't know might think that we have some unspeakable secret." Qin Mo glanced at him. He stuffed one hand into his pocket and stood tall. "If you want me to get in the car, leave some space for me." The psychiatrist sized him up. In the end, He couldn't see anything from that noble and handsome face. He sat back and took out a fountain pen and a pile of notes on his lap. Today we... Just as he was about to speak, Qin Mo interrupted him. That's right, it's very important, so I won't tell you anything about her. You don't have to think of ways to make me fall asleep. After all, this is a little difficult for you. The psychiatrist gritted his teeth and kept the pen. Honestly, he really wanted to resign and coach the new recruits in the army. Why did he have to come to his young master to suffer? Then tell me what you want to tell me. The psychiatrist had already given up. But he didn't completely give up. After all, no matter what was said, it could reflect a person's psychological state. But the answer he got was definitely a rejection. All these years, his boss's reaction was basically the same every time. Qin Mo crossed his slender legs slightly. It was obvious that he was used to this. Sometimes the psychiatrist would come to do psychological tests for him. I do have something that I want to hear your analysis of. The psychiatrist was about to write the word no. But after hearing Qin Mo's words, he suddenly straightened his body and almost dropped the fountain pen in his hand. Qin Mo glanced at him and reminded him faintly, "Be professional, don't let me see your shock." The psychiatrist tried his best to control his micro-expressions, but his voice still sounded a little excited. What is it? It's about the thoughts of a high school student. The psychiatrist guessed for a long time but didn't expect such an answer. Was he kidding? This wasn't what he wanted to hear. Okay? If a high school student still likes to listen to bedtime stories, why is that? Qin Mo's side profile didn't change at all. The psychiatrist spread his hands. Isn't it easy to analyze? She can't forget her childhood and lacks a sense of security. This kind of person is a little complicated. It's not that she doesn't know anything, but she knows everything, but she has a pure land in her heart that she wants to keep. And it's very likely that her pure land is her childhood. In other words, the words childhood sweetheart are very important to her. Of course. The psychiatrist thought that this inference was very simple. Qin Mo didn't say anything else. He just looked out of the window. His deep eyes seemed to have deepened. His fringe fell, blocking his expression. He had already done this analysis. However, when this kind of analysis was said by someone else, he still subconsciously reached out and pulled open his collar. Just like that. He sat in the car seat. His posture a bit more unruly than usual, but the corners of his mouth hid all traces of a smile. That was why she kept wanting to leave. This time, she went overseas with the intention of never coming back. Chapter 1076. There's one more thing. Qin Mo glanced over. The psychiatrist adjusted his white coat and said righteously, "Boss, do I look like someone who specializes in dealing with teenage psychological problems?" "This time it's me," Qin Mo replied calmly. The psychiatrist lifted his eyes. His interest piqued. "What? I don't know why images keep appearing in my head recently." Qin Mo looked at him, his tone slow. "Could it be because I like someone too much, causing me to think of the person when they were young?" The psychiatrist's hand that was holding the pen paused, but he didn't show it. He flipped open the notebook, writing as he said, "From a psychological perspective, if you like someone too much, you would indeed think of the person in all sorts of situations. There might even be things that you haven't done, but you would feel as though you have experienced them. Boss, you study psychology too, you should be clear about this." In reality, it wasn't just the person he liked. Many people would have the same feeling as though they had thought of it before. Qin Mo retracted his gaze and pulled the car door to the left. With a swoosh, the car door opened. Just as the psychiatrist was about to ask more questions, Qin Mo had already alighted. The psychiatrist was helpless. He glanced at the incomplete form in front of him. It really wasn't suitable to hand it over to the higher-ups. But, if it was really like what Boss had said, would it mean that Boss would regain his lost memories? But regardless of whether it was the general or madam, they didn't want that memory to reappear. After all, no one would be able to forget that scene. Boss, who was covered in wounds, seemed to have lost his soul. It wasn't until he recovered from his illness and had a fever for 3 whole days that he lost some of his memories, that he returned to his current state. Selective amnesia. He must have suffered greatly for this to happen. Before they found out why Boss would feel pain, They wouldn't allow certain memories to trigger young master. After all, no one could guarantee what would happen. Since it was so painful, then they wouldn't do it. This was the decision they had made at that time. After all, if Boss had had a complete memory, he would have been accused of being hypnotized by a terrorist organization and would have faced a more serious interrogation. No one would have expected Boss to have selective amnesia. Just like when he was on a mission at the border, what exactly happened to him was still a mystery. The psychiatrist rubbed his temples. This was a huge matter and he had to report it to General Qin. This meant that he had to let Boss bring people to complete the mission. As the night passed, it began to rain outside the courtyard. Qin Mo strolled around, looking elegant and refined. Soon, someone walked over, raising a black umbrella. In the future, ask them to wait for young Master Zhou to fall asleep, Qin Mo replied indifferently. That person nodded and didn't say much. The young master's trip was basically filled with chills. He didn't know what had happened. Qin Mo didn't say anything else. From the conversation just now, the only thing Qin Mo was sure of was that the doctor was lying, and he was lying about his situation. Chapter 1077. The next morning. Bo Jiu left early. This time, she walked out of the main gate, using the excuse of walking the cat as an excuse to bring Princess along. Before she left, the old men who were out for a stroll greeted her. "Little friend, you're here again. You didn't climb over the wall this time. You did well the last time. He must be going back to get punished. Where are you going so early in the morning?" Bo Jiu experienced the enthusiasm of the old men in the courtyard. All of them were tough but still like old children. "I'm going out with Princess." Bo Jiu found a good excuse. She pulled down her jacket, revealing Princess's huge cat face. He was valiant and full of vigor and seriousness. Those who didn't know better would think that they were going to do something big. The old men at the side teased. "Does your brother know that you're walking the cat outside the courtyard?" Everyone thought he was Qin Chu's little brother. Bo Jiu replied calmly, "I know." She was happy that she finally didn't have to sneak out. At this moment, in the study room of the Qin family's house, the person who always followed Qin Mo appeared. "Young master, don't you need to follow young Master Jiu anymore?" "I don't need it here." Qin Mo used the knife and fork to cut the omelette in front of him. His voice calm. "She doesn't like to be restrained. Give her some freedom and she will know what she wants to do next." There was a double meaning in his words. The man glanced sideways at the book in his young master's hand. Sun Tzu's Art of War. Retreat in order to advance. This was a good move. Bo Jiu was more relaxed now. After alighting from the taxi, she let Princess lie on her shoulder, letting him fend for himself. As a purebred cat that rarely left the military courtyard, Princess felt that such an outing was an insult to his bloodline. However, seeing that this strange kid had fed it dried fish, it reluctantly looked at him for a while longer. Coco and Fengshang hadn't expected Bo Jiu to bring a cat. One wave of teasing, and another wave of teasing. In the end there was music. Princess wore a huge pancake face, watching the few humans jumping around in front of him. He patted the big fellow that always made sounds. During lunch, it was finally quieter. The strange kid treated it well. After feeding it some dried fish, he picked up a lunchbox and started eating. Are humans so poor now? Eating boxed meals? The four of them did eat boxed lunches. The place he brought the princess to was also a studio for practicing Korean dance. People like us. Can we form a group and officially debut? Coco said as he ate. He didn't forget to look at himself in the mirror. The more I look, the more handsome I look. I'm not going to look anymore. I'm afraid I'll lose myself in my own handsomeness. Fengshang didn't say a word and hit the back of his head. Wake up. The two of them didn't use their mouths or their fists, they were just fooling around. Finally, he quietened down and glanced at Lin Feng, who was still trying to find his tone. Coco leaned against the huge mirror, his voice low. Is Supreme Alliance really going to be like this in the future? Fengshang didn't say anything because he knew too well that all good things must come to an end. Some things couldn't be achieved just because you wanted them to. We're still here. Feng Shang's bad habit hadn't changed. Wait for everyone to come back. Coco slapped his long legs. You're right. I'm rich anyway. We'll wait here for them to come back. Both of them knew he was just comforting himself. Yun, who was overseas, and Lin Feng was going to start a company in the future. Their captain was gone. How could they go back just like that? Everyone probably understood this point, which was why they were especially serious during practice. 5 p.m. The four of them had officially graduated. From the rhythm to the repetitive movements and the proficiency with the lyrics, they were no longer the people of the past. Are you ready? Bo Jiu asked the three beside her. Lin Feng pointed at his eyes. Do I have to wear eyeliner? Stage makeup. Bo Jiu smiled devilishly. The lighting is dim. We'll take the car over. It'll start at 6 p.m. Coco tugged at his shirt. Am I too cute? Aren't you the type? Bo Jiu glanced at the lit-up phone screen. It's Feng Yi. The other three immediately shut their mouths, glancing up at themselves in the mirror. Hello. Bo Jiu stood up. Is the venue ready? All right, we're ready too, let's go. After hanging up the phone, the other three stood up together. Just then Feng Yi said, From my perspective, it isn't high enough, it's lacking a highlight. Think about it, what highlight is there? Bo Jiu turned on the hands-free mode, allowing everyone to hear his words. Lin Feng fiddled with his hair. As long as I don't have to wear female clothes, I can find any highlight. However, Lin Feng didn't expect the youngster to laugh lightly. The young man chuckled and added, I'll wear it. 2 words. Lin Feng almost tilted his head. He must be dreaming. Was this kid crazy? He must have lost sleep for the past 2 nights, causing his hearing to be impaired. Voluntarily wearing female clothes. What was going on? Let me tell you, little spade, don't take a step back in order to advance. Don't think that if you sacrifice yourself, I'll sacrifice myself with you. I refuse to cross-dress in this life, Lin Feng said majestically. Coco and Feng Shang, who were standing at the side, finally managed to shut their mouths. After all, they were innocent people, unlike Lin Feng who had so many twists and turns. Now there was only one thing left in their minds, and that was Spade Z, idol, was going to cross-dress. As the person in question, Bo Jiu didn't change much. She stuffed one hand into her pocket and used the other to pull Princess back into her arms. She smiled faintly as she walked out of the mirror. She had said that since she was going to leave, she had to leave openly. The other three glanced at each other, feeling as though the world was a little fantastical. The 4 of them stood tall, wearing the same uniform. When they walked out, they immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. Bo Jiu was still wearing a mask. Just as she was about to enter the nanny van, a figure flashed past. It was probably because they were near the subway and there were many small vendors around. That person looked very familiar. Bo Jiu stopped and glanced over. Little Spade, what are you looking at? Let's go. Coco patted Bo Jiu's shoulder. Get in the car first. I'm going to buy something. A clear voice came through the mask, sounding a little nasal. Coco didn't have anything else to say. He put on his earphones and started revising the lyrics. Bo Jiu walked towards the slightly hunched figure. The person hadn't seen her yet. Her hair was slightly white and there was a wooden drawer-like thing hanging in front of her. That was something all the vendors would come into contact with. There wasn't anything special on it, just a few cartons of cigarettes and a few bottles of mineral water. It was a pain to sell like this. Under the bright sun, they had to walk back and forth. They had to walk back and forth. If someone saw them and needed cigarettes and water, they would buy 1 or 2 boxes. It was convenient for people who had just left the subway. Your change. The person lowered her head, a smile on her face. She was in her 50s and the bracelet on her hand seemed to have been sold. There were only some things that Bo Jiu couldn't identify. The person lifted her head. Her eyes lit up when she recognized Bo Jiu, but she couldn't call out her name. She asked in surprise, Child, why are you here? If it hadn't been for this person, her daughter wouldn't have won the lawsuit. Hence, even though Bo Jiu was wearing a mask, she could still recognize the youngster. Bo Jiu was carrying a cat in her arms. Her eyes were on the boxes of cigarettes. She took out her wallet, wanting to buy some. The person reached out to stop her. No, I'm not selling these to you. How old are you to smoke? She changed her direction and passed Bo Jio a bottle of mineral water. The weather is so hot, drink some water. Bo Jio took it but didn't open it. When she opened her mouth, her throat moved. I remember your daughter has some royalties. Oh, about that. The man grabbed his clothes as if it was difficult for him to speak. In the end he said, you see, those children are following me around, working hard. I also have to spend money to fight the company. These few times, I also have to find people to prove the evidence. In the end, it's my own problem. I don't want others to say that I did it for money. That's why I insisted on holding on to this matter. Things are as they are, so. Bo Jio interrupted her. I understand, Auntie. The person smiled, wiping the sweat off her forehead. In the end, I still have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't know what to do. You should know that I can't read a single word. MMH. Bo Jio reached out to hold the mineral water bottle. Is your friend calling you? The person pointed at Coco and the others. Hurry up and go. You seem to have taken good care of yourself. Don't tan your hands. Bo Jio looked at her face. Jio, remember, you have to always speak up for the weak. The weak aren't those who say they are pitiful and cry in front of others after hurting others. The real weak aren't those who can't seek justice after being hurt. Bo Jio stood there, the sunlight piercing her eyes. She understood. It had been so many days. From the county to the provincial capital, and then from the provincial capital to Jiang City. She had fought 3 lawsuits and every one of them had dragged on. How much money and effort had she expended? How many of them didn't sleep and wished that they could die immediately to calm themselves down? Then, they would have to face a bunch of questions the next day. No one would care. In China, there was a strange phenomenon. If a person wanted justice, there would always be a heart-wrenching explanation. This person must have done it for money. Why was she so troublesome? Everything was over. Could she get over it? In their eyes, one sentence was the end of the matter. But it was the last straw that crushed their hearts. Even until now, there were still people who didn't mind stealing. No one would care. They didn't care about the lives of the people they had hurt. The truly weak would never make a sound. Because they wanted to seek justice in a dignified manner. Hence, even if they won the lawsuit, the mother would only ask for $1 of compensation. Because she knew that if she asked for more, people would say she did it for money. No matter how the public opinion changed. In the end, the other party would be clean. But in this industry, there were many people who copied the original work and used it to become popular. Then, they would turn around and accuse the original work. After being discovered, they would pretend that nothing had happened. Anyway, there were people who supported them. But the people who were really hurt had to have no desires. Wasn't it right to take back what was taken from them? Wasn't it right for them to seek justice for their loved ones who were taken from them? If they had to talk about compensation, how much compensation would it take to return to a mother and a daughter? But it was these people who made every piece of justice that should have come too late. Bo Jio watched as the slightly bowed figure walked further and further away. Her hand holding the water bottle was a little numb. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about reuniting with the Almighty. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about staying in Jiang City. But at this moment, these thoughts were burned by the sunlight. She wanted to be Z. Return to where she should be. Do what she had to do. Swoosh. The car door was pulled shut. It interrupted her thoughts. Bo Jio sat in the front passenger seat and sent a message. Hoshino received it. It was a simple message, but it indicated her return. When Hoshino saw the message, he stopped playing the game. Because he knew. From today onwards, Z would be Z. She wouldn't be involved with young Master Fu anymore. Everything would return to normal. Bo Jio hid it so well that the people in the car didn't notice anything unusual. Or perhaps, everyone was focused on their own tasks. Besides, Bo Jio had been wearing her earphones ever since she boarded the car. It seemed like she was listening to music. Hence, no one paid attention to her. The nanny car followed the flow of traffic towards a technical school. Why did they choose this place for the farewell party? It was because there was an additional major in this technical school. Esports. In the future, Supreme Alliance's power would probably be chosen from here. The location was chosen by Feng Yi. Since it was a farewell party, it should be done with a bang. After all, Supreme Alliance had never been a team that kept a low profile. The situation had changed drastically in an instant. This was a gathering place for schools. Other than this technical school, there were number 1 middle school and number 2 middle school nearby. Those who studied this major were high schoolers. Everything had the authentic atmosphere of a school. It was a little like the welcoming party for new students at the start of school. The equipment was set up on the grass. There was a rack and a sound system. There were professionals doing sound tests. There were also many balloons hanging on the ground and a long buffet table filled with food. Every member's fan club president was arranging for them to enter. It was a spectacular scene. When some students passed by, their eyes were filled with envy. There was a metal fence. It was originally a place for people to play football, but now it was set up like this. Everyone wanted to watch it for a while. Who is coming? An event organized by a celebrity? They chose a technical school to organize it? That's impossible, right? I don't think so. I heard there are esports players coming. Chapter 1078. Strangely, the fans were all here. For members from Supreme Alliance weren't here. Many of them were looking for Spade Z but couldn't find her. Are we late? It can't be anything. There should be a traffic jam, let's wait. After all, it was different from the previous masquerade. This time, everyone didn't dress up exaggeratedly. It was just like a grand evening party in a school. But Feng Yi had replaced the host. As usual, he was dressed in a suit and looked like a smiling prince. He held the microphone in his hand and said, "There will be a special opening today." Just as he said this sentence, in the darkened area, all the lights lit up, shining on the corresponding balloons, adding an indescribable warmth. As for the opening, Feng Yi looked at the fans in front of him, then at Yun Hu and Qin Mo, his lips curving into a smile. Let's give the stage to the 4 members who aren't here yet. What did he mean? It wasn't just the fans who weren't sure what was going on. Even Yun Hu and Uncle Ian, who were in the same team, couldn't understand. Qin Mo stood in the middle, his bandaged hand in his trouser pocket, the other hand swirling the wine glass. When he heard Feng Yi's words, a glint flashed across his eyes, and he lifted his lid slightly to look up at Feng Yi. In that instant, all the surrounding lights were extinguished. Only the shattered stars were left in the middle of the stage. Swoosh! A beam of light fell, shining on the black piano. She saw a young man sitting there quietly. The young man's slender fingers were placed on the piano, and his handsome side profile exuded softness under the light. It was obvious that the youngster was dressed differently today. Otherwise, she wouldn't have a belt around her waist and a headset. But at this moment, no one would pay attention to the youngster's attire. Because the next second, the melodious sound of the piano rang out. It was very light, making it easy for people to hum along. It was obvious that the music had been rearranged. Just when many people felt that the theme was very familiar, the sound of the piano rang out. The youngster stood up suddenly, taking large strides towards the center. Her silver fringe was pulled back by her hair, revealing her beautiful forehead. The sound of the music changed. It was the same theme, but at this moment, it was bright and cheerful. It was also at that moment that the other 3 people walked up from the left and right sides. Each of them was wearing the same combat uniform and had a black earpiece on their left ear. Even their wrists were tied with the same black silk scarf. All of them gathered together, and the scene was so handsome that it was a little out of control. As they appeared, everyone held their breath. What are they doing? Before anyone could finish their words, Feng Shang opened his mouth. His voice was clear as he danced, giving people a sense of obedience. At such a young age, I still don't know what love is, but I was defeated by your sweet smile. Most importantly, the others did the same thing. At this moment, Coco and Feng Shang would switch their positions, continuing to sing. Every day after class. Different timbre, but equally pleasant to the ears. In addition, the 4 of them were singing and dancing at the same time. Chapter 1079. The expression on every single fan's face changed. Even the students who were sitting by the railing stood up at this moment. Some fans were so agitated that they didn't know what to do. They reached out to hold on to the people beside them. Some pulled out their phones. Most of them covered their mouths as they pressed the recording button. The stars shone brightly. Besides the black scarf, Wuxia had something else on her wrist. Everyone had a glowing black wristband. As they danced, they looked even more handsome. Every single person who stuttered wouldn't stutter when they sang. This was probably common sense. Feng Shang's voice was completely unleashed at this moment. Even the fact that Lin Feng was out of tune wasn't a problem anymore. Because during the chorus, the four of them moved in unison. Wuxia's voice appeared at this moment. I just want to give you my love. I still don't know if this is considered love. I want to share my happiness with you. I want to give you a shoulder when I'm sad. This is the first time I'm nervous for someone. They had rearranged the dance. Hence, when Wuxia sang this sentence, she tilted her head and paused. She tilted her body slightly, a mischievous smile on her lips. Her silver hair fell down as she formed the shape of a heart with both of her hands. Then she formed the shape of a 1. When Qin Mo saw this scene, his hand that was swirling the wine glass froze. Feng Yi stood at the side, his head aching slightly. Couldn't they have given a heads up about such deliberate actions? Was Little Spade afraid that no one would know about the CP issue? Fortunately, the pause wasn't long. They were dancing after all. After Wuxia finished singing, she retreated to the left. Lin Feng stood at the front. He formed the same heart shape, but his style was different from Wuxia's. His handsome face was the best plus. His voice was accompanied by the harmony at the side. Many people couldn't help but sing along. They raised their hands and swayed their bodies lightly. The atmosphere was extremely high. I really want to give you my love. It's only been a few weeks. My mood is bad because you aren't around. A ray of warm light shines down. I can't help but look forward to it. Because of love. With the end of the last sentence, countless colorful balloons floated out from the stage. Only 4 people were left on the stage. Their chests rose and fell slightly, and they couldn't speak for the time being. Because they had just finished dancing, even their hair seemed lighter than usual, but they were smiling brightly. Wuxia's devilish aura hadn't changed much. But compared to her devilish aura, after singing such an adorable song, she bent over and placed Princess on her shoulder, looking even cooler and more handsome. Sweat slid down the young man's forehead and landed on his chin. His silver hair was already a little wet from dancing, but it didn't affect him much. Instead, it added a sense of unruliness to him. The 4 of them looked at each other and said, I'll give you the best love. Then, they bowed in unison. At that moment, the screams were uncontrollable. Some people even felt that it was a pity that the 4 of them didn't become stars. They were all fair and clean, but each had their own merits. How does it feel to listen to your favorite esports god sing? The live version of the handsome dance. It was mainly a heart gesture. Even if the heart wasn't for them, it was enough for everyone to cheer for a while. The passionate atmosphere couldn't be calmed down. Even Yun, who was in disbelief. After all, he was aware of Lin Feng's singing skills. But when he saw that person's side profile was covered in a thin layer of sweat, he smiled brightly, revealing his beautiful teeth as he walked towards him. Once again, Yun, who felt his heart beating wildly. Even his blood vessels were getting heated. The repeated tremors made him unable to control himself. He reached out and grabbed Lin Feng's wrist. The moment Lin Feng came down from the stage, he hadn't even stabilized his breathing when he was dragged backstage by Yun Hu. The so-called backstage was just a temporary place. But even if it was temporary, there was a door and a small changing room. Before Lin Feng could react, he was already pressed against the wall. Are you an idiot? Yun Hu's voice sounded extremely deep. What the hell? Lin Feng was about to explode again. He admitted that his singing wasn't good, but he didn't have to be an idiot, right? Dressed like this, Yun Hu continued. And singing such a song. Lin Feng glared. Wait a minute, what's wrong with what I'm wearing? Why do I look like I'm naked when I'm with you? F***ck, move aside. Yun Hu didn't move. Lin Feng reached out to push him. But his hand was pulled back, followed by a turn and a kiss. No one could escape from such a kiss. It was as though he wanted to tear him apart and devour him. His thin lips were pried open, and he moved around inside, sucking heavily. A numbing sensation assaulted him. Since it was an enclosed environment, they could even hear the sound of kissing. Lin Feng even forgot to make a move. Anyone who was treated in such a way would have their mind go blank. His head was buzzing, and his thoughts were all in a mess. There was also an abnormal breathing sound. Yun, who was the one who ended the kiss. He seemed to have regained his rationality, forcefully pulling himself away from the sweet taste. He leaned his head against Lin Feng's left shoulder, his voice hoarse. I like you so much that I'm about to explode. So, this is the last time. Treat it as a gift to send me off. It's really the last time. Lin Feng's eyes widened. Lin Feng didn't speak, his face blank. Only his slightly red lips showed his current state. Yun, who straightened his back. The two of them fell into silence. It was probably because of what happened the previous time. It still didn't pass. Hence, even now, they didn't know how to break the news. The youngster, who had been watching from start to end, noticed that the two of them weren't moving and the atmosphere seemed to be frozen. She had originally intended to guard the door, but when she glanced down at her watch, it was about time. She reached out and knocked on the wooden door of the fitting room, even though she was already inside. Lin Feng and Yun, who paused, turning towards the source of the sound. They didn't know if they should heave a sigh of relief or be annoyed. Why was Little Spade beside them? Bo Jiao expressed that she wasn't going to take the blame. They had discussed beforehand that she would be wearing female clothing today. The moment Lin Feng met the youngster's gaze, he seemed to have thought of something. He opened his mouth about to speak. Bo Jiao was still hugging Princess, leaning against the wall, a faint smile on her face. Rather than the fitting room, you can find a car. After all, there isn't a third wheel in the car. Cough. Lin Feng decided not to speak. With the current situation, there was no way he could clear his name. Yun, who stuffed a hand into his pocket. His voice calm. It isn't what you think, we are just fooling around. Who would be fooling around with kissing? Bo Jiao arched a brow. Yun, who walked over, leaving behind only one sentence. He is straight. Bo Jiao didn't reply since she felt that the atmosphere between them wasn't the same as before. After Lin Feng heard Yun, whose explanation, he smiled. Yes, we are just fooling around. His voice was obviously much lower. Bo Jiao didn't have time to ask. Lin Feng spoke again. Which set of female clothing are you going to wear? He was changing the topic. Bo Jiao understood. She glanced back and forth between the two of them, feeling that something was wrong between them. When Yun, who heard this, he paused in his tracks as though there was something wrong with his ears. You're going to cross-dress? I am. Bo Jiao walked over, twisting open a part that was covered. It was a pure black long dress that hung down, reaching her ankles. For some reason, Lin Feng felt that the dress looked a little familiar. But he didn't have time to think. Yun, who asked, Does Captain know about your cross-dressing? No. Bo Jiao smiled. If I don't wear it, Senior Lin will have to. Was that the logic? When did he say that? Yun, who was still frowning. Lin Feng was already resisting. Don't even think about making me wear female clothing again. That's why I will wear it. Bo Jiao lifted the dress, her movement swift. Even if you are leaving, you have to be handsome, don't you think so? Lin Feng didn't understand why the definition of handsomeness was defined by cross-dressing. But that didn't stop him from supporting Little Spade's decision. He hadn't seen Little Spade in female clothing the previous time. This time, he had to see what Little Spade looked like. All right, I'm going to change. If Almighty Yun wants to continue with Senior Lin, you can find another place. Bo Jiao smiled. Her words successfully made Lin Feng flush. Yun, who could only remain silent. They walked out of the changing room together. Coco ran over. When he saw the two of them, he arched a brow at Lin Feng. What's wrong with your mouth? Mouth? Lin Feng seemed to have realized something. He changed his lines. It should be the hot pot in the afternoon and the spicy pot in the afterlife. Coco hugged his rabbit, muttering, It wasn't that fresh during the dance. Does the chili have a delayed reaction? Lin Feng couldn't let him continue thinking. What are you doing here? I'm looking for Little Spade. Is he wearing female clothing? I told the fans that we are going to have a big move later. Coco couldn't hide the excitement in his voice. Lin Feng wiped the sweat off his forehead. He finally managed to divert his attention. Little Spade has already changed. He locked the door from the inside and asked us to wait outside. That's good. What do you think Captain's expression will be when he sees Little Spade in female clothing? Ha ha ha, I really want to see it. Yunhu turned and glanced at the tightly shut door. He didn't tell the two simple-minded fellows that their captain had seen Little Spade in female attire. But this time, Captain didn't seem to know about it. Chapter 1080. In the fitting room, the youngster bent over and took off her t-shirt. The reflection in the mirror was the white bandage wrapped around her chest. Since it was covered, the Z logo wasn't visible. But it was obvious that after the bandage was removed, her perky curves could be seen. Her elegant neck matched with her beautiful white collarbone, which slowly blossomed, giving off a kind of enchanting bewitchment. Bo Jiao glanced sideways at the collagen Lin Feng had provided. She smiled and threw it into the bag. Her left hand moved and she turned to buckle something behind her back. All he could see was a vast expanse of white. Once the long dress was on, Bo Jiao glanced up at the mirror. She placed the long curly hair on her head and used a black clip to secure it. The energetic pretty youngster instantly turned into a cold young lady with the demeanor of a queen. Bo Jiao held a silver electronic lighter in her hand. She lit a cigarette and took 2 puffs. Then she remembered that the Almighty had mentioned quitting smoking. She extinguished the cigarette lazily. She glanced at herself in the mirror. Dressing up was a piece of cake for her. She didn't need much makeup. She just needed a mascara to lift her eyelashes and a bright red lipstick. She glanced at the person in the mirror. She had the typical vibe of a witch. Princess frowned as he watched from the side. He looked at Bo Jiao cautiously. Meow, who could tell him what this strange youngster was up to today? Bo Jiao reached out and picked it up, hugging it in her arms. She wore a black dress that reached her ankles and carried a snow-white cat in her arms. Bo Jiao looked more like a bloodling girl from a manga. Outside the fitting room. After the dance, the other 3 had already picked up their glasses and started to drink. Even Lin Feng, who had disappeared to God knows where, lowered his head to avoid some people's gazes. The only one who didn't appear was Big Spade. The fans weren't the only ones looking for him. Qin Mo sat there with his long legs crossed. He tapped the wine glass with his fingers and looked at Coco. Where is she? Coco was still imagining his captain's reaction when he saw Little Spade in female clothing. He didn't expect his captain to suddenly ask him, so he was a little confused. Ever since you got off the stage, you haven't been eating or drinking. You've been staring at me. What are you looking at? Coco shuddered at the question. How could he forget that his captain had always been good at reading people's minds? What are you hiding from me? Qin Mo swirled his wine glass and took a sip. When he glanced over, his gaze was faint. Coco couldn't resist the pressure and was about to tell the truth. An uproar could be heard from the crowd on the left. Here it comes. Coco's eyes lit up. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice. Lin Feng was also watching. He was watching from a close distance because the person who had caused the commotion was already in front of him. At this moment, when Lin Feng saw the figure with fluttering long hair, he looked like he was about to collapse. He couldn't help but say, F***CK, why is it this person again? Captain will probably be acting weird again. If Captain lets Little Spade down again, it won't be right. Even though Lin Feng's memory wasn't good, he could still recognize this person. Chapter 1081. It had to be said that Lin Feng's gaze was hostile and it was very obvious. Furthermore, he had said those words. Yun, who stood at the side. He raised his right hand and held his forehead gently. He had thought that this fellow would go offline occasionally. But he hadn't expected him to go offline so badly. How many times had it been? But he still couldn't tell anything. In fact, Lin Feng did find the girl familiar, but he had never associated her with Spade. After all, the current Bo Jiu was clearly different from her short-haired self. When her fair fingers were placed on the cat's head, her silky black hair was scattered on both sides, and her porcelain-like shoulders were slightly exposed. Her makeup was extremely beautiful, which was why the person standing in front of her looked like a noble from a castle when she smiled. Bo Jiu heard Lin Feng's words. She had come to look for them. She smiled. From what you said, you seem to hate me. As long as you can tell. Lin Feng had a stubborn personality. He stuffed a hand into his pocket, looking arrogant as though he couldn't stand the sight of her. Bo Jiu arched a brow, a playful look in her eyes as she took a step forward. Lin Feng called out, "Don't come over, don't you know it's improper for men and women to touch each other?" Bo Jiu stilled, but in that instant, she lowered her body, still carrying Princess. She bent down, her side profile stunning, especially the faint smile on her face. "Senior Lin, if you continue to hide, I'm going to tell Coco and the rest about your kiss with Almighty Yun." Lin Feng stilled. Lin Feng was stunned for a moment. Then his eyes widened. His clear eyes were filled with disbelief. How did it feel to be struck by lightning? How did it feel to be struck by lightning? That was how he felt right now. Lin Feng's mouth seemed to be stuttering. He couldn't even speak properly. "Xiao." After stuttering for a long while, he said like a man, "F***CK. Why is it you? This isn't logical. F***CK. F***CK. Lin Feng's 3 consecutive curses were enough to explain his current mood. He could never have imagined that the girl he had always mentioned in front of Little Spade, the girl whom he suspected Captain liked, would be Little Spade herself. This wave was really awkward. Bo Jiu straightened, the smile still on her face. Many people looked over. It was probably because of Lin Feng's reaction. Everyone was curious about who the girl was. Why was she hugging the cat that Big Spade had been hugging? Until the man tilted his head, revealing the black diamond earring. Only then did some of the fans stop what they were doing. They didn't dare to think further. However, the air around them seemed to have frozen. Everyone covered their mouths. With such a huge commotion, China Mo would definitely look over. In the crowd, that person was wearing a long black dress. Her fingers were stroking the princess's head. Her eyes were black and beautiful. It was as if all the lights in the surroundings were reflected in her eyes. That person looked up uneasily. The 2 men's eyes met. Bo Jiu smiled faintly, her long hair flowing down, the mole at the corner of her eyes glistening. At that moment, there was only one sentence in Qin Mo's mind. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.